All right, and we will, in the interest of time, get started. So thanks everybody for joining us for April's PUC Task Force Lunch and Learn. And I'm happy to welcome Irina and Andy with Seculore, and they are going to present to us on cybersecurity. So I will turn it over to Irina. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely, and thank you guys for letting me share. We obviously do this day in and day out, and it's a very important topic because it hits all of us, and that's because public safety is under attack. And we have seen that there has been an increase lately. It used to be folks thought their radio networks were safe, and we've been seeing attacks on radio networks left and right. It's really impactful, and I'm sure you guys are going to recognize a name or two here. You know, these are the ones that make the news. So if you think about it, it's a fraction of probably what has gone on. And that's the same thing is true for around the country, right? This is maybe 10% of the actual number of attacks that occur. These are just the ones that make the news. And it's not getting any better. And the confusing part, in a way, is that cybersecurity isn't new. We have been talking about the need for cybersecurity for many years now, and most folks do have the firewalls. They have antivirus. They have endpoint protection. And so what's puzzling is even with all this in place, we're still seeing that attacks are happening. And there's no one solution that is 100%, no one layer in your defense in-depth strategy. What you need is an approach that incorporates all the best of breed in endpoint protection and antivirus and all those things. And then the unique factor, if you will, that we bring is that our methodology recognizes anomalous behavior. So we can watch the watchers. When your endpoints start to behave strangely, we see it. When your firewall is doing something it didn't do yesterday or 2 minutes ago, we recognize that and we research it and we figure out, is it a misconfiguration or is it something malicious that's going on in your network? And we help you. And that truly reduces the risk of your overall network cybersecurity. The other interesting factor about this is that because we invented our solution, we patented it, because it is something we can constantly innovate on. We have been able to create a TDOS solution that helps with the telephone denial of service because everything's gone IP. So now even our telephone lines are at risk from cyber attacks. And we've also created and are currently patenting a solution that will allow video and photographs to be securely passed to critical centers, to 911 centers. So this is impactful stuff, and our mission is public safety cybersecurity, so it is the most important thing to us. And we've been doing it a very long time. We are the resource that Department of Homeland Security comes to get their insights on what is going on in cybersecurity and public safety. We have helped various states to not only recognize how important cybersecurity is to public safety, but to actually help fund it as well, which is the other half, right? It's one thing to know that you need it. The other part is, well, how do you pay for it? And that's very important. We sit on the FCC's TFOPA. We sit on the I3 working group. APCO's cybersecurity training is something we created. You'll see us at all the APCOs, hopefully, come and say hello and talk about whatever you're seeing, because we're there to make an impact, and that's really important to us. At the heart of what we do is our Paladin. That is our device that captures at layer 2. It's passive and agentless, which means that it is very quick and easy to install, 10 to 30 minutes, and it's in place. And the reason I mention that is because we've seen all too often a customer gets a very critical, necessary part of their overall network, and then it sits on their office floor for 7 months. That's not going to happen here because it is our mission to help protect you as fast as we can. And our people are a true benefit of our service because our technology is great and we're very proud of it. But if not for our people, it would be just another tool that you'd have to learn to use to get the biggest impact from it, right? But we don't make you do that because our people go through the alerts to your network and they verify, are they legitimate or are they a false positive? They look to see, you know, is it something that needs your immediate attention? Is it a critical, or is it something that you could get to next week or next month perhaps? And those are very important things because your IT teams are busy and they are tasked with a lot of things and they need someone who's going to help them and work in a complementary manner with them, not someone who's going to add to their workload. Currently, we're in over 30 states in this country, and what we see in Washington, we can deploy to Florida. So we keep everybody safe with everything that we learn in the moments that we learn it. This is our visualization interface. Although you don't need to ever look at it, you can get access to it, and we have many telcos who actually use it to troubleshoot their networks. But like I said, we do this for you, so you never have to look at it if you don't choose to.
Irina,
Mhm.
are you going through your slides, because we're not seeing a change in your slides?
I am. That is a problem. I don't
Jennifer,
know.
is that what you were going to say?
I think if you just click through it on your presenter screen, we're still seeing your presenter screen, and that's fine. So if you'll click on your presenter screen and go to the slide that you're on, that should be fine.
Okay, well, I've been looking at all kinds of pretty pictures and you guys haven't gotten to see them. So are you seeing it now?
No, we're still seeing the very first slide that says cybersecurity, defense in depth.
Okay. I'm gonna, okay. This is sad. Okay. I'm gonna go back to the beginning. So
we're seeing the slide with the map of the U.S. with the Seculore,
right.
Indicating which states Seculore is currently deployed in.
All right. So I guess one of you guys, if you're able to tell me what I need to do so that you guys can see the, do you want me to send it or something? I don't know what to do, how to make it better.
It's okay. If you go to the slide that you want to be on right now and in your presenter screen and click on it.
It's not letting me do that.
Well, go ahead and stop sharing.
Okay, how about if I stop presenting?
Yep. And then when you go back to presenting, you should be able to pick an app to present. And you can choose your PowerPoint or you can choose your slideshow.
Okay. So I'm picking the, okay, so you guys see it. What do you see now?
Now we see your presenter view.
Okay.
Which is fine.
All right.
Yep, you can see your cursor moving now. So yeah, it says public safety is under attack.
Yep.
All right, but what, so if I start, if I do this, do you no longer see things moving?
No, we still see your presenter screen.
Okay, so I can't actually, okay, so you guys are just gonna have to see it this way, sorry.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Okay, now it makes sense. I'm glad someone said something. I can go through this real quickly. So this is just some of the things that have been happening in Colorado. These are the numbers that I showed across the US, which we're looking at just a fraction of that is just a fraction of the real number. And then this is where I talked about all the layers that we have and surprising that we still see attacks because we're doing so much about cybersecurity. And hold on. Okay. This way you guys at least get to see what I went through. These are all the organizations we're involved with and we're considered a subject matter expert in. Our Paladin, our states. All right, now this is important. So our visualization, this is what I was talking about, where some telcos decide to use that as a troubleshooting vehicle for their networks. And then what our analysts look at day in and day out, 24/7. And this right here is what we call cyber shapes, this little black box. What we're able to do is see the traffic as it's traversing the network, and we can actually tell the function by the shape. So here you're looking at a brute force attack, happens to be Hydra. If we saw this on your network and it was followed by a successful login, we would know that they got into your network. We're able to see very similar to how you can see, you recognize a garage on the street because it has a door big enough to park a car in. Similarly, we can tell what the activity that we're seeing is doing based on how it's moving through the network. Here we were doing a cyber benchmark for an EZInet, and basically the director had trusted but verified the telco that said, we've got it under control, you don't need to worry. And within a week's worth of traffic, we saw 3 pings basically that were going out to 31 Jinrong Street in China and then being responded to inside this closed network. And that is something that should not have happened, but basically what it was a call statistical analysis device that was put inside this network, and it was a brand new server bought off of Amazon with a new operating system put on it, but this device had come with a chip, and this chip was the way that they had pre-hacked it from China to be able to call home. At first, the telco was a little upset at us because, of course, nobody wants egg on their face, but they ended up realizing that we found this before anything malicious had occurred and ended up blessing us to go into any of their networks in the entire United States. So that was kind of a big deal. This is also very useful when you have compliance issues, like some folks don't want TikTok on their networks. They allow Facebook maybe on one network, but not on the main one. We can see not only that this activity is happening, but also who's doing it, which IP, how long, and is it, a picture of a puppy that they looked at, or did they click on something that downloaded a virus that then will enumerate your network and eventually take command and control. So we can see that kind of granularity within the network. Our flagship is our Seculore Overwatch, which is our 24/7 monitoring. It is incredibly collaborative, and it helps guide the IT team to evolving their cybersecurity. It is industry leading, and as I mentioned before, we're constantly evolving it to stay ahead of the cyber threat landscape. Quick and easy to install, and incredibly comprehensive. And that is a powerful tool to have in your arsenal.
Hi, Irina, I'm here if you guys need me.
Yeah, you missed all the fun with the technical difficulties. I was all in my presentation, and it turned out it wasn't actually moving. So now we're doing it in this methodology. So they can at least see the slides move. So here we're helping one of our customers in Delaware, and their neighbor got attacked by the same Black Cat Alpha V that basically took down MGM casinos. And their incident response company had already deployed Sentinel-1. Well, we happen to be big fans of Sentinel-1. We said, that's great, keep doing what you're doing, but in an abundance of caution, we're going to go ahead and send you a Paladin. And within 10 minutes of being installed on their network, what we saw was that not only had the Black Cat Alpha basically stayed on parts of their network that did not have endpoint protection, but it was actually spreading back out into the network at large. And so we were able to help them isolate, remove, and verify that it was truly gone, which was very impactful to that county. This is the deliverables that you get with the Overwatch service. And key here are the fact that you do get a dedicated analyst and a team to back them up. You get the initial incident response. When something happens, we are there to help you figure out how to resolve it and respond to it. You get the weekly in-depth vulnerability reports, which have everything from the lows that you can deal with in a couple of months to the highs that you might want to deal with this week. And then, of course, anything critical that happens, we're going to be calling you, whether it's 2 in the afternoon or 2 in the morning. And that will be a call you want to take. Sean, do you want to talk about Baltimore? And Nope. Okay.
I
I'll talk
do,
about
I
it.
do, I do. I just had to get the double mute going. Anyway, so I had the honor, the unfortunate honor of spending 7 months helping Baltimore recover. The issue was the 911 side of Baltimore had been through our process, had followed our recommendations, and was not actually affected by the Robin Hood attack, because all kudos to them, they did the work, right? They listened to us, they followed our recommendations, and they made it impossible for that attack to affect them. Unfortunately, the rest of the city hadn't done so. And in fact, if we had been in there the day before, we would have seen the command and control of a particular server that was not in the DMZ. It wasn't architecturally where it should have been and properly protected, obviously. And the bad guys had been sitting on for 87 days. Not only did we capture that methodology and figure out that was patient zero, right? We were also able, even though we deployed after the fact, to help them achieve full isolation containment in about 4 hours. Unfortunately, by the time we showed up, which was the early of the morning after they discovered it, of the night before, right? By that time, they'd already lost 2,000 systems out of 7,000. So we were able to help them protect the remaining 5,000 because we helped them isolate and contain. And then we reverse engineered the malware because we had the raw packets. That's part of our methodology. And we deployed a countermeasure in use today by the FBI that defeats Robinhood's ability to encrypt any of their devices. And we gave that entire playbook to the FBI. And since then, we have not seen a successful Robinhood attack of any scale, which is amazing. That's a good story. That's what I wish would happen every single time. Actually, I wish we captured them before they got in, right? So they didn't lose those 2,000 systems. I misspoke. The point is having that ability to do that, and the same with the Thanksgiving Day attack that took out the Municipal Transit Authority of San Francisco. We were actually helping, doing our assessment for a small Maryland county. We saw every packet of that attack as it was spreading through on Thanksgiving evening. Of course, that's when the bad guys hit us. And we caught every packet of that. We reverse engineered the malware and extracted the key. We then shared that with the FBI and live with San Francisco, so everybody was able to recover within hours. That is hard to do, folks. It's not usual that we'd be able to extract the key, but in that methodology, it was a Mamba attack, the same one that took out the city of Atlanta. And the point is having the ability to not only analyze it, but to potentially extract the key and then figure out how they got in, how it spread, and the fact they were not able to steal the personnel data that they said they were going to sell on the dark web, which is also the internet or the cloud, right? The place we all live. The point is understanding that and helping them reduce the risk, and also to make sure it didn't happen before. Baltimore, for example, we were there for 7 months, helping them restore the networks in a safe and secure way, because the last thing you want is another successful attack in the middle of recovery. And that happens 84% of the time. We don't want that, right? We want to make sure that we are defending and we're aware of it, and you're using the ability to then understand those attacks as they're happening or before they attack, before they succeed, because that's the ultimate goal. Let's stop it proactively, but understanding it's not if, but when. And so having the ability to then address it as needed is really important. So.
Absolutely. And, you know, we've mentioned the cyber benchmark a couple of times. It is our vulnerability assessment, and it is basically the actionable guide to evolving your network security. Not only do we assess the indicators of compromise and look for all of the bad that may be in your network, or even just the misconfigured that may be in your network, we also give you policies like password creation, acceptable use. We give you an incident response plan that then you can customize to your center, so that you know what Bobby's going to do and what Sue's going to do, and print it out, because you may not have access to your computers. We were doing one of these cyber benchmarks in Kansas, and part of what we discovered was that they were communicating with over 200 of like the worst places in the world that you would ever want to communicate with. And it was surprising because they had geo-blocking, they had firewalls, they had endpoint protection, and it was all very good caliber. But this communication was happening, and at first we couldn't figure out what was going on. But together we were able to figure out that it was their HVAC system. It had been installed and connected to the network in 2012. The person who installed it had long been gone. And the reason they installed it was likely for something like notifying you that I now need a new filter or something like that. But it was never used. It had access to connecting with all these bad sites. And once we realized it, with one disconnection, they reduced their risks and their vulnerabilities in their network by over 90%. So that was very exciting. So the advantage with us is that we complement the other cybersecurity within your network. We are recognizing the anomalous, non-baseline behavior, and that we verify the architecture that you have in place is working as expected, which is very critical to the security of your network. The full forensic captures allow us to do some of that reverse engineering and also collect evidence for anything that's going on in your network. It is quick and easy to install, which is no small feat. And the fact that it is NIST 853 compliant, because we are a third party coming in to monitor and perform assessments for your network. We are monitored, supported, and manufactured in the US. And just to leave you with something, not all cybersecurity is the same. Make sure when you're checking that box that you do it with the right solution that is actually going to help you evolve your network. And the least expensive options can at times cost you. Plus, it's just an adorable little horse. And so with that, I think we can stop sharing and chat.
So thank you, Irina. For all of those who are on and know me, it's good to see your names at least. I don't see very many faces. But when I came over to Exacom, Exacom purchased Seculore last summer. And when I came over to Exacom, I got a presentation on this. And as you guys know, former executive director, and we had cybersecurity measures in place, but there were so many little things that I really didn't have any sort of true understanding of. And when Sean and Irina explained some of these things, I thought that this would be a fantastic time to bring this up to the Colorado group from a very educational perspective. And also, I understand many of you guys are comm directors or managers and not always the IT. Joe, I see you're on here. So, you know, legal representation, not necessarily the IT folks, but I think some of these things that were very enlightening to me could be enlightening to you. And I also want to take a moment. I know that the beginning of this call was a little crazy and chaotic with some technical difficulties, but Irina, will you just introduce yourself? We actually didn't do that at the beginning of this call.
Absolutely.
Sean do the same.
So I am Irina Vishnevetsky, and I'm the Cyber Alliance Specialist with Seculore. I work with a lot of our partners to help them bring in the cybersecurity that helps our customers with their mission, and to make it as seamless as possible and to really bring an impact to their center.
Thanks. And I'm Sean Scott. I'm the CTO at Seculore, now part of the Exacom family, right? That's a really good change for us because it just means that we've grown from being a startup into part of a 30-year company with an amazing track record. And while we've only been around for, well, most of the past decade, it's really interesting to see how impactful across the 30 states we've become. And it's really an honor to work with you all. We love public safety. It's reminds me of my Air Force days, right? Back to really helping folks and helping those who help us. And so we appreciate all of you. And I know Call Takers Week's coming up. So thank you. Thank you for all you do. And regardless if we move forward or you guys decide to use us for monitoring, you have a problem or a question, or we can provide some cybersecurity guidance, feel free to reach out. That's our mission.
I will say that in a small way, the way that this meeting happened should be impactful, because I talk to people all day long, 5 days a week, you know, sometimes 6. It goes smoothly. And just like what you're doing, your days they go the way they're supposed to. Everything goes the way it needs to go. And then all of a sudden you can't reach your network, or something goes on, or the bad guys get in. And that is actually, in a way, apropos to the way this meeting went, because it doesn't always go the way you intend it. And there are bumps in the road. And it's important to have people like Mandy to help you smooth out the bumps and get to where you're going.
That's awesome.
And we have a question from Michael with Summit County here in Colorado.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm not sure why my camera didn't turn on. So you mentioned the monitoring from a kind of a practical standpoint. The monitoring, is that done? Are we installing a VM with your software? Is it all through that Paladin box that would connect to our network? What does that look like?
So the Paladin.
Maybe you guys can explain like the 3 tiers that we have.
Sure. So the Paladin is the device, whether it's the physical device or the virtualized device. We deploy that as the sensor. It is passive, so it works off a span or mirror port, captures every packet, store those locally, even in the cloud, it stores it locally, right? The point is, then we have those raw PCAPs, but it then calls home to our SCP, our Seculore control panel, that allows us to 24/7 human-based analysis and alerts. We have AI and machine learning, but it's the human understanding that is really impactful for public safety. I just wanted to point that out as one of the pieces. So the install usually takes 10 or 15 minutes. It's really nice. The other side of being passive is we don't miss much. If you send us all packets, we're going to analyze all packets. So that just means that it's really hard for us to be blinded, right? Other than them unplugging the device or turning off the span port or mirror or tap, then we can see all. And that gives us a greater understanding and the depth of knowledge, and saving those packets for the past week so we can reverse engineer them, because we have the forensics, we have the evidence, if you will. So great question, Michael. Does that answer?
Partially. And so then I guess taking that a step further, we have there's our network, there's the state-run radio network, there's the phone network, which is typically not entirely but strongly isolated. Mm-hmm. It's installing on each of those? How does that look from your side?
Yeah, so it depends on the utilization. We are authorized to install on each of those individually. And so if they are properly segmented and there's no overlap and the communication is just through the desired result, then we would put one separate device on each of the physical segments. VLAN segmentation doesn't matter to us because we're looking at layer 2, the raw packets. So if you envision a larger deployment, that might be 3 in that network plus the redundant aspect. So if, for example, you have 2 Vita cores in your network, we would be on both of those, or 2 of the Motorola, what do they call them? NSCs, right? The point is, it depends on where we would deploy on the radio. Same with the CAD or the 911. Oftentimes on the 911 side, we're watching the core of the 911 before it gets delivered to you, and then individually at the different PSAPs or ECCs.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Thanks, Mike.
Jennifer?
Thanks so much for the presentation. And I know that CISA just held a cybersecurity summit in San Diego. Can you share with us some takeaways that you found to be helpful at that cybersecurity summit?
Sure. So the CR 911, the Cyber Resilient 911 Summit that you were at, or I hope you got to go to. If not, then they have some recorded sessions. I was just sent one of them from the one previous. There's been 4 around the country. They base their knowledge off of the encyclopedia that we created for them. They came to us before CR 911 and actually been CR 911, but we've been partners with CISA for a long time. And what we did is create an encyclopedia of all things that have hit public safety for the past 4 years and looking forward to. So the underlying data that they presented was stuff that we helped them develop, or we gave them, because they're a new organization, and that helped them understand. We've also worked very closely with the other side of CISA, right? And that being Billy Bob Brown and his team. We have partnered with them since 5 or 6 years ago, since they gave us a decent grant to help us accelerate our methodology. So what we're doing is the next level, right? The CISA is a great place to start. The free assessment is a good place, a good thing to start with, but it isn't the end, right? The part of what we're trying to get them to recognize is the fact that after that, then we have to make good guidance as to what's the next step. And they can't endorse anybody, so their hands are tied in a lot of ways. But we also want to make sure that they understand that we don't want to lull people into a false sense of security just because they got a good report card once. It's great. I'm glad you got a good report card, but let's worry about tomorrow, right? Let's talk about the next steps and the other aspects of it. And so I do like what they're doing, and it is under a lot of our guidance, and they're saying all the right things. And we just need to make sure that we keep going, right? We don't relax just because we crossed the line in the sand, and that it is a continually, it's a journey, and we can't stop the journey because the bad guys aren't, right? And they made 20 billion last year. So unfortunately, we got a long way to go, all of us. And we're there to help that process and work as an extension of your teams to improve that and make recommendations about training and guidance. It's also why we sit on the CISRIC 8 board or CISRIC 9 coming up to help guide where the future of public safety is and make sure it's doing the right things. That's also part of our mission. Always has been, which I love.
Perfect, thank you. And then as a follow-up question, you know, PSAP challenges being what they are, and you know, time and money, on a high level viewpoint, what would you say are the biggest challenges facing PSAPs in the cybersecurity world? And if you had to prioritize one or two things to start with, what would those be?
Let me tilt your question a little bit. We have the same problem you do, finding good people. That's hard in our world, period, right? But cyber is as challenged, if not more so, than 911. So we developed our own methodology for bringing our people up to speed. And if the three-letter agencies would quit stealing our best people, because by the time they're through our program and where they are, it's natural for them to move on to that role at a three-letter agency. And that's really sad to see them go. But part of the process was we developed, as well as this cool tech and amazing technology, it's the humans. That's our heart and soul, and that's really should always be the focus, just as in the 911 center itself, right? Your people and make the calls, right? And make the answers and make the calls work. So it's really important that we have that as well.
Well, and then also the fact that, you know, most of the centers that we've talked to anyway are fairly limited in their resources. So they don't have a team of 13 cyber experts working, you know, behind the scenes to make sure that everything is tight and secure. They have folks doing the best they can, probably doing 3 or 5 jobs, you know, at once. And sometimes we even see that, you know, the guy that knows the most or the gal that knows the most about cyber becomes the IT person, and they don't have a separate entity for that. And so then you have to look to the resources that are available, and not to pat us on the shoulder too much, but, you know, we are one of those resources that can really help. It's like a team in a box, basically, and enhance the ability of you to understand what's going on in your network without having to hire a team of 5 or 10 people to do that, you know, internally.
If you could find them, right? So just in everything, you know, staffing and finding the right people is tough. The other side is finding partners and vendors that you can trust. And we live in a trust but verify world. So we're open to verification, and all of the people you should be talking to in the cyber world must be so. That's part of the requirement. The other thing is we can't promise 100%. There's no such thing. What we can do is say we're always there, we always have your back, and people sleep better at night knowing we're there. That's high praise. That's the highest praise, especially for folks who are too busy to sleep, right? So it really makes sense that that's important. Your second part of the question is, when we look at the greatest value, monitoring is absolutely required, but oftentimes training is a good place to start, because it doesn't cost as much, and it's a good place, stopping people from clicking on links or getting them to do it less often, and good passwords and all the things I've been talking about for 35 years now, is still there, right? A lot of the the terrible attacks we've seen against the radios and other networks in very recent times, right? Things that weren't previously attacked are now being attacked in tremendous amounts. And most of the time, it's the basics that everybody misses. And it's just because we're exhausted by passwords. We're tired of dealing with these things. And so we write it down and stick it on our monitor. And unfortunately, that means that when that person comes in and takes a picture in a Facebook post and our monitor's in the background that we didn't know was there, right? Those things are real. We have to deal with that. So being reminded of those is one of the best and most effective things we can do. And then understanding that whatever resources we dedicate to cybersecurity are going to prevent us from spending a great deal more money down the road, right? Even if a small county still has to pay a tremendous amount if they get hit or when they get hit, not if, but when. So if that is in fact the truism that we have to accept in our world now, we don't send our firefighters into a situation where they don't have the proper gear, right? We give them the best gear we can afford, and we always make sure they carry that. It's the same in cybersecurity. We have to be prepared as much as we can, and monitoring is a good aspect of that. It's not all the aspects. It is a good understanding of all other aspects, especially if you're utilizing somebody like us. And I'm not saying you have to use us, but you must do it, right? It can be something else. It's just something that 84% of us aren't doing and should be in public safety.
And if I may, Sean and Jennifer, to answer your question a little bit, as we know, many of our PSAPs are under a larger organization. So they're part of a municipality or part of the county. And so many of our networks rely on the county or the city IT or something along those lines. And I think that when we're talking about public safety, that becomes a vulnerability because those of us who are in the management of the PSAPs tend to think that those IT departments have it under control. And I think, you know, that message of trust but verify, but do that internally as well is a great first step for PSAPs specifically to ensure that their systems are as robust as they possibly can from a cybersecurity perspective. I can admit that I was guilty of that myself at Westco. I always just said, oh, IT handles that. Oh, IT handles that. And then come to find out that there were some very big vulnerabilities that we had.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm sure other people have some questions as well. This is not a quiet bunch.
It is quiet lunch, Jennifer.
They're not normally a quiet bunch.
We're here to help folks, not here to scare.
Anybody have any questions or concerns about their PSAP or about any breaches that they can share, maybe some lessons learned?
All right, let me offer a couple. And these are just recent lessons that we've, well, helped people deal with after they learned, right? So we've seen a lot of attacks in public safety recently against networks that we didn't think were really that exposed. Those attacks came mostly from the Akira group, which goes after our VMs and does throw oftentimes through brute forcing, which just means they keep knocking on the door. So, and none of those attacks would have been successful if the systems had been properly patched and or if they had done the multi-factor that is now being recommended across the board. Well, we've been talking about, it's not new, right? The point is, especially for our IT folks, the people who have control of the systems, but also for management, have to be aware that you're all primary targets. They want to be you. And so if you have multi-factor set up and if you're doing everything you can do, including geofencing, unless you go to China, you shouldn't be able to log in from China, right? Those kind of things would have defeated all of these recent attacks. And it's easy for me to say after the fact that, you know, they should have done that. What I'm saying is they didn't actually spend the amount of time or the resources to move those things forward And that would have saved them a great deal of time in the long run, and resources and money, right? Because they wouldn't be cleaning up the mess and ordering new equipment and losing servers to the FBI, because they are now part of an ongoing investigation, right? Those are all real things that happen in our world. So just be as prepared as you can be. Yeah, change your passwords. CGIS requires 8. Well, let's use 12 or 14. All of those things are good, and go to multi-factor as soon as you can.
Thank you. So I'll just throw one more out there. As Mandy alluded to, sometimes in the PSAP world, you do fall into the idea of, oh, that's IT's job, that kind of thing. I know we have a couple of IT folks on here, so I'd love to hear from them if they wanted to contribute. But absent that, what are some resources or that you could recommend to learn more about cybersecurity challenges facing PSAPs, and where people can go to learn more about that and become a little bit more comfortable?
So you can go to the news, right? We actually have an archive on our website that shows all of the attacks that made the news that affected public safety. So don't hesitate to see what your neighbors had to face, and as much as the details as the news has, which can be wrong, right? The point is, being aware that it's happening in your neighborhood is really important. And so that awareness, you can also sign up for our alerts. That's all free. We're not going to bug you. The point is that having that knowledge, and we have webinars going back for the past 8 years, every month. We just did one on attack surface management. If you don't know what that is, then you could go learn about it. It's designed for public safety. So those are good places to go. Unfortunately, you find out about all too many of these in the news. And when CISA got hit recently, they also didn't properly, in my opinion, report it and shout it to everyone, so they know that this is going to happen if we keep not patching, if we keep not doing the things that we need to do. Then we are all going to get hit, and it's okay to get hit. We're not blaming the victim. What I'm saying is, everybody's a target, and being prepared is required. It should be part of our nature. And I'm sure the IT folks spend a lot of time and a lot of nights worrying about these things, but so should we all. It's shared responsibility, and we need to bring that awareness to everybody's thing. When they don't click that link, they're helping us. When they change the password yet again, they're helping us. Those are ways to directly affect and work together and make sure that we are all doing our best, because we're at cyber war. And it's public safety is a primary target. So says everyone. Go to CISA. There's a good place. Brian Krebs is one of my favorite sources. Krebs on security, spelled with a K. He always has amazing articles and is always getting hit because the bad guys hate the fact that he's reporting on all their stuff, and he tells the truth. That's really important. And so finding your sources, et cetera, we're one of those good sources. So CISA. You can go to any of the vendors too. They're getting pretty good about putting blogs and other things out there, because we're forcing them to. We're pushing them to do that on behalf of you all, because we need it, right? We need that awareness. And then the other side is trying to find ways that they're not inundating us with noise, right? We become blind. We call it alert blindness, right? Alert fatigue. Because there's so much to look for and so many things to be aware of. That's one of the things that our capabilities are focused in on, just alerting you when you need to be alert. That's a critical trust component, in my opinion. Otherwise, we're crying wolf, and you're not going to listen. So you have to be careful of not being inundated as well. So the proper tools, ask your IT folks what they need, and support them in that. Give them those resources, whether it's for training or monitoring or new firewalls or any of the above, endpoint monitoring, all necessary things.
And Jennifer, I did put a link in the chat, but the Seculore website, right there on the very top, it has cybersecurity resources. So anybody can go to that website, click there, and it provides quite a few resources and information for those who just want to take a look at very specific things. There's articles, there's other webinars, there's things like that. And it's a quick, easy way to get to some resources particularly from that PSAP perspective. And if it becomes a little too technical, we can get that, you can, loop in the IT folks.
Thank you. And Irina, what else would you add to that?
Well, I just think it's important to allocate enough budget to get the resources you need, because the worst thing is saving on the front end and then paying on the back end, like Sean was saying. I know things have gotten expensive and it's hard, and you guys have a lot of responsibilities within your budget, but cybersecurity is not something that can be put on the back burner anymore. It's got to be up front and center, and there's got to be enough allocated to it. And if you guys need help, if you need someone to, sit in on a board meeting or go to your, Senate meeting, or however you get additional funding and additional attention to the things that you need, we're happy to help. And Sean has a lot of experience doing that. And he's helped a lot of states get more than what they had before.
Thank you.
So for any of you who are going to be at the Colorado APCO-NENA conference, I will be there, but we'll also have a Seculore representative as well. So it might be a great opportunity to talk in more depth about your specific organization. So here in Colorado, there's not a huge state oversight on 911. And so PSAPs get to operate locally, and their governance is really controlled at the local level. And so that's really important that people, that vendors understand that, because one agency might have a very different take than the one just next door. So if there's more IT folks or somebody has something specific, Michael, I know you had a question about that monitoring specifically coming out of Summit. That might be a great opportunity for you guys to have a better conversation about that. Daryl, go ahead.
I just wanted to add, so I did go to the CISA Cybersecurity Symposium in San Diego earlier this week, and I'm going to be working with Jennifer on getting some additional information available to the PSAPs and 911 governing bodies of the state. Michael Berry from Summit County, who's on the call today, was also there representing local agencies. But I'll give you a sneak preview, and it is preparation. And I think, companies like yours, you're focused on the technical preparation, but at the local level, we also need to think of the other types of preparation. We need to think about, because as you said, it's not if, it's when. And in fact, you may already be infected and not even know it. And it's just a matter of when they flip the switch on you. So, a big part of that preparation is making sure that you have hard copy papers of all of your resources, so that you're not relying on systems that you may not be able to access for extended periods of time. If there's an attack, having a list of the people you need to contact and people you need to call if there's an attack, making sure that you're contacting the State Fusion Center as well as the FBI to get them informed of it as quickly as possible. Know exactly who in your local IT group needs to be contacted first, and make sure that they are reachable at all times for those purposes. So those are the types of things that we need to think about, as well as, how do you keep your people able to work for extended periods of time without the technology that they are used to working with. So it's not just about preparing to keep it from happening, because we know that no matter how much we prepare, we're still vulnerable to some extent. So if it does happen, what do you do? And those are the types of things I think we're going to be talking about here in Colorado, as well as, the other part. We obviously want to prevent as much as we can, but when we can't prevent, how do we respond?
Completely agree. Yeah, the other side there too, and I put the ic3.gov, that's where you go to report for the federal stuff, is your COOP plan. You have already, I'm sure, some type of plan. Well, adding cyber to that is simply, to Daryl's point, adding in the communications piece. Who do we call? And making sure that's all a hard copy, right? Because unfortunately, your laptop is probably the one they're going to go after first, right? That's how it works. So make sure that you've got that. Hopefully it's always a doorstop and you never need to take it out. Having that COOP, which is continuing an operations plan. So it's the same plan we use when there's a bad storm or some other kind of emergency. Adding in cyber into it is simply adding who else to call and what to do, which are part of those initial steps. So absolutely there. And to Daryl's point, physical security. Yeah, absolutely. That's really important, because if somebody gets into that room, they then have root access. That's what we say. Access is root. So we have to take those into the pieces as well. Most of the time in public safety, we don't have to worry about insider threat intentionally. But our people are just like anybody else, and they're just as likely to click a link or to pick up a USB in the parking lot that says vacation photos, right? These are real things. And so the physical aspect of it is, and then also the operational technology, the other things, the Internet of Things, those things have to be incorporated into our plans, to Daryl's point.
Another thing that came up at the symposium was the importance of maintaining all of those plans, because I think, you said it can become a doorstop. It can't really be a doorstop. You have to touch it regularly to keep it up to date.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not going to be there when you need it.
Yeah, and use it. Actually take it off, dust it off, and run through some drills, some what ifs, or get somebody to come in and do some incident response training for you. This is all possible and doable. APCO actually uses our training. That's the cyber hygiene that they teach is our course, and now the intermediate level as well. We love that. We want to, that's a give back, because that helps us all. So go to the training, do the stuff. To Daryl's point.
And Daryl, will you be presenting in a session at APCO? Is that where you're going to be presenting this?
Oh, no, I'm just talking about bringing back resources from the symposium that I just went to for the as an user group and the task force here in Colorado. I'm not nearly enough an expert to present on it, just to bring back what I learned.
I was just wondering if that was going to be a place where you disseminate some of that information in that setting.
Not this year, anyway.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I also posted the blog from the symposium, so you've got that as well.
Thank you, Sean.
All right. Any final thoughts, Irina?
It's just, you guys do so much, and it's so critical to our communities. And, we're here to help, and that's what we do. And if you talk to anyone who is a customer of ours, you will hear that. It will resonate. And we'd love to help, and anything we can do to make your lives easier, that's what we're here for.
Thank you so much. And thank you for spending some time with us today. Did I have someone unmute and have a question? All right. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you both, Irina and Mandy and Sean. Thank you for being here today. And we'll look forward to seeing you at the state conference at the end of the month.
Thank you all. Take care. Be safe.
Be well.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.